I got the panel turned over and I am working on flat soldering the back. I did a live post on YouTube and now I am sharing the love on Facebook. So basically my goal here, I've got it all fluxed. My goal is to go ahead and get all of the seams filled on the back side and flat soldered as well. Again, I want to keep my seam as flat as possible. And the purpose of this video basically is to show you that most of your bubbles are going to happen right now on the back side. So as we go through and fill these seams up, that air in between there needs to escape, and that's when a bubble is going to happen. It's okay because it's on the back side, and it's just a matter of going slow, filling the seam, getting rid of the bubbles. I'd rather have the bubbles happen here on the back side than have them happen on the front side. So I just take a little more time on the back side and let that air escape. Again, stay away from the edge because we've got the zinc to deal with. And if I soldered all the way to the edge, I'd probably have to melt it off so that I could get the zinc on there. So I'm just going, most of the time when a bubble happens, it's going to be in a place where two pieces meet together, like right there. Zoom in on that a little bit. Okay, so as I'm soldering, I'm just letting it heat enough and let those air bubbles escape. You want to try to get out as much of the air here on the back side so that when you're finished soldering the front side, you're not dealing with it. It's already been taken care of back here. So again, I'm just kind of following that seam down. If I do get a bubble, I just go back over it, heat it a little bit, let it work itself out. Now, if this panel wasn't going to be seen on the other side, on the back side not viewed, then you could just leave it as a flat solder. And a lot of people do, and that's just fine. I, however, have a sidewalk on the other side where this is going. And believe it or not, this is the very first panel I've ever made for myself to stay in my house after 20 years of doing stained glass. This is the first one I've made for me. That's sad. But when you own a studio, you have to make money, and that's what doing commissions does for you. So this, I have a sidewalk on the other side. It's on the front of the house, and it will be viewed from the other side, so I am going to go ahead and finish solder. Just see what I'm working on here now. I'm going to finish solder the back side also. Plus, if I ever decide I want to sell this down the road, it's a lot easier to finish solder it now before I get it all patinaed and 10 years of age on it or whatever. And if it is going to be used and viewed on both sides down the road, it's already done. So I just think that way. I always think down the road, I guess, and what's best for that. So if somebody does want it, or if I decide to relocate it and put it in a frame and hang it as a room divider or something like that, it's finished and it looks nice on both sides. Again, my goal is basically get the solder in the seams, get rid of all the air bubbles in there. If an air bubble does come back, notice I just touch it again with my soldering iron, let it kind of work itself out. Most of the time when it bubbles, it's going to be at a seam, a joint, I should say. So I have to work a little slower on this step. The step being flat soldering the backside, just dealing with those bubbles. I'd rather deal with the bubbles on the back than deal with bubbles when I'm trying to finish solder the front. I'm using a Weller soldering iron, and I switched to my 800-degree tip. Because once I start finish soldering, I move along. I solder as fast as the iron will let me. And I'm using 50-50 solder yet, and trying to keep my seams as flat as possible. If you have any questions, I do have my tablet set up over on the other side. I'll stop every once in a while and take a look at it. Try to answer questions as I go. If I get a bubble, I just go back, retouch it. As I come to a point like that, you'll see, especially when I start finish soldering, I always pull through the point. If I go backwards over the point, the solder is going to want to fill in that crevice there, and I don't want that. So I always pull through the point. The finish solder is what most people have problems with, and I'll try to spend as much time online as I can when I get ready to finish solder this, which will be probably take me not quite an hour to finish this up. Notice I like feeding my solder right directly into my iron, into the side of it. It'll automatically wick down. There's a bubble. Get rid of the bubble. The more bubbles you can get rid of right now, the easier it will be, because they will want to escape at one point or another. So I'd rather have it escape now than when I'm trying to finish solder. If you've got a small piece like this little wing, you don't want to spend a whole lot of time there and get it really hot because it will crack. So I may move over just to let that piece cool down a little bit. I can move over and work on another spot. Doesn't matter, it all needs to get done. My main goal now, again, is filling in the gaps, getting solder down into that seam to give it a good solid core, and to let the air bubbles escape. Faster isn't necessarily better, especially with this. You gotta let your tool do its work. Okay, notice I turned my iron on its side when I came to that point there. Now solder is only going to stick to the foil. It won't stick to your glass. So if you get little pieces that sticks onto your glass, little solder dots, those will come right loose. Don't use your fingers because cold solder looks the same as hot solder. But you can move it around with your solder or your iron. You'll see me turning my iron a whole lot more when I go to finish solder, because I want to be able to control the temperature. And I get 2 different temperatures and 2 different widths of my iron when I'm turning my iron, taking advantage of it as a full tool. If it gets to a spot where the solder doesn't want to stick to it, maybe I forget to flux it, I just have my flux brush somewhere handy. There it is. I don't need to dip it into my flux. I can just borrow what's already on the glass and just re-wet that a little bit. Or if it has sat there for a little bit, because I did take a break and eat some lunch, I can just re-wet it just by rubbing my flux brush back over the surface of the foil. There's plenty of flux on the rest of the project that it's going to fill around. See the air bubbles? Just go slow, let them escape. That's my goal, is to get all the air bubbles out. Trying to keep my hand out of the way for you. The camera's sitting right where I need to be standing, so it's a little more awkward, but I'd rather show it. Let you know you're doing it right, or give you some tips if you're not. Get this filled in. And stay away from the edge. I don't want any solder up on that edge where I'm going to put the zinc. Go back and do that later. If you ever see me backing up, it's because I'm going back to catch an air bubble again. See, as I'm going down that line, I'm pushing that air, and then once I get to, I'm going down this line, I'm pushing the air out in front of me. Once I get to a seam, that's where the bubble most likely is going to come up. Right there. So I just pause on it a little bit, let it work itself out. I think somebody's Facebook has been hacked. Keep getting a message from this person. I know we've been friends for a while, so I'm going to ignore that. Notice I don't stay in any one place any too long, because I don't want the glass to get hot and crack, and it's highly unlikely it's going to drip through because I've already got that other side, the front side, which is the bottom right now, sealed with the 50/50. You can see in this joint here how that solder has come up through there. That's perfect because that's going to give me strength. So I don't have solder just sitting on the top of the panel. It's penetrated all the way through. There's another one like this right there. It's penetrated all the way through like an H channel. So I'll have solder sitting on the surface, in the middle, between the pieces, and then on the other side, the back side as well. Okay, that's not wanting to solder. So just add a little more, just brush it with some flux. Up here. Really about the only way this could drip through onto the front side again, since I've already got it flat soldered, is if I really get it hot, too hot. And if I get it too hot, my glass is going to crack. So if you feel your glass is getting too warm, if you've got a lot of little pieces, just move to another part of the panel. It doesn't matter. It all has to get done. So just move over here to another area. I can almost at this point predict where those bubbles are going to be. Again, as I'm pushing through here, let me seal this end up. So I've got solder over here. Okay, so that seam is filled up. So what's going to happen, I'm going to push that air out, and then I'm going to get an air bubble right here. Right here, I'm going to solder along the seam. An air bubble is going to appear here because it has nowhere else to go except up and out. Same with this, up and out. So most of the time I'm not going to get air bubbles as I'm doing a line. It's going to happen when I get to the end of it, just because the air has nowhere else to go. A lot of little pieces here, a lot of hot molten solder happening around them. So I may do a couple, and then I may go somewhere else. I may come over here for a little while. just to let that center area cool down just a little bit. If it's too hot to touch, if you touch it and it's too hot to touch, you should go somewhere else for a little while. This blue glass ended up being really pretty on the Ripley side over here. It's granite. If I had to do it over again, I think I'd put the granite to the front side of the panel. It's really cute. But maybe in the next world. I'm not redoing it now. The butterfly will be really cute on the back. Another reason to finish solder it. I normally find that if I drag my iron versus pushing, it works a lot better. Every once in a while I just get impatient and I go ahead and push. Here's another area that doesn't want to, whoops, sorry, solder. Get you over here so you can see where I'm at. So I just rub it with my flux brush. I got plenty of flux on it. You don't have to kill yourself with flux. The more you put on, you got more that got to clean off. Again, I just want this as flat as possible. I don't want to build it up. I'm just doing the flat, getting rid of bubbles. If you have any questions, let me know. If nothing else, maybe this is confirming that you are doing it right. And that, you thought you were slow, but no, you're not. That's the way it is. You can only go as fast as your tools. So if your iron is a little cool, you're going to go slower. If it's too hot, you may have a problem with cracking or drip through. And it's just a matter of learning how to read the solder to know if you can go faster or slower. A lot of times I'll literally, especially finish soldering, I'll have 2 soldering irons plugged in because the soldering irons can't keep up with me. They cool off. I'm feeding it too fast for the heat to penetrate it all the way. So I'll switch off and on every once in a while between the 2 soldering irons. And you can see this is my first roll of 50/50 so far yet. I'm going to run out. I'm not going to quite get the whole panel done. See where I'm at right now, but it's right here at the base of the camera. Get that done while my iron is right here. You can see that, but I'm literally just holding the solder right next to my iron, right on it, and I'm touching it. and the heat and the angle of it is allowing it to drip down. So I can solder a little faster by just feeding the solder continuously. Now if I do go faster, I'm going to have more bubbles to go back and fix because I'm not allowing it time to escape. Like there, so I just put my iron on it, reheat it. When you're fixing bubbles, even when our finish soldering is happening, notice I pick my iron straight up. I don't scoop. If you scoop, you leave those sharp little barbs that cut you when you're cleaning and waxing. Always pick your iron straight up, and that will avoid those. Because what's happening is the solder is freezing mid-air, and that's what's giving you those little spikes. It will self-level. So as you go back and lift it, it will self-level itself. You'll see that a lot more when I'm finished soldering. I'm feeding it right into the side there so I can just keep on going. And I'm out. So where are you seeing? Haven't wiped my iron, hadn't needed to, on my sponge. If it starts getting where the solder doesn't want to stick to it, then I'll go over and just wipe it on my wet sponge. Just soaked in water, nothing fancy. Cleans that tip up. I'm just doing a flat solder right now, trying to get all the bubbles out. For those of you that had just jumped on. You can see how very little smoke I'm getting using gel flux, and very little sizzling that I'm getting using gel flux, versus if I was using a liquid flux, you're going to get a lot more sputtering and splattering. Okay, now I'm getting down to the end of my solder line. I need to reflux. So I could do one of two things. I could just go ahead and lay it down on my project, or I can attach it onto my next roll. So let's see. Let me cut it in half. Okay, so let's say that's my piece right there. So I can literally just kind of scoot it where I want it to be and just use it. I can pick up this, and where are you? You're on this line here, and use that. Solder will only stick to your foil. Okay, so let's say this is my piece here. Position so you can see it. And this is a little bit shorter. I think I would not do this in real life, but just to show you, I have a longer piece of solder here. I can literally just melt them together. just like that, and pick it up and use it on. Back up and get these couple little pieces here. Okay, I noticed my new roll of solder isn't wanting to feed onto my iron as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get a bath towel or cloth, whatever. This got a little more terry cloth to it, a little rougher. And I'm just going to wipe that solder. And it does have a little bit of buildup on it. Alrighty, where else? This little piece here. And let's go do these flowers. See, that helped. That helped. See how easier it's flowing on there now? Weird little things. It doesn't look like it makes a difference, but weird little things like that over time I found does. So here's several little pieces. So I'm going to do a little bit and then I'm going to come back, go somewhere else, let these cool down a little bit. I could do this one. There's a lot of little pieces there and a lot of solder which holds the heat, so I'm just going to go somewhere else. Let those cool down. Same with these stems, kind of long and narrow. I don't want them to crack. So I'm just going to go somewhere else, let those cool for a little bit. People talk about putting like a wet towel underneath as they solder to help it from dripping through. Well, if it's going to drip through, it's already dripped through. I personally haven't found that it does much good. It may control the temperature a little bit. To me, it wasn't worth the hassle of it, but that's just me. There's no right or wrong. If you do it and it works for you, that's great. Again, if it's too hot to touch with your hands after you leave it for a minute or two, then you need to stay away from that area. Last thing we want to do is have to repair a break before we even get it finished. Doesn't really matter where I go, it's all got to get done. And if you just joined us, I'm flat soldering 50-50 on the back. My main goal is to get the rest of the solder through the seams between the pieces, and that will create a nice stable environment because it's not just sitting on the surface, it's down in the seams, kind of like lead. I want to keep this as flat as possible. It's called flat soldering because I want it to be flat. This is going to, with 50-50, it takes a hotter temperature to melt than what 60-40 does. And so this is building a nice flat solid base for me, so when I go to do my finish solder, I have a flat base. I'm not fighting the bubbles. If I would just finish solder this right now instead of 50-50ing it, I'll finish for 60-40, which is a softer solder. So it'll take less temperature, so it won't melt through this unless you wait and pause too long. But that 50-50 takes more temperature, so that 60-40 is going to sit on top, allowing you to build a really great round bead. And look, I'm almost done. We can do a little bit of finish solder here. Nice. Sorry, forget to move you. Let's see if I can put you so that I can still get to the panel. There we go. What we got left? This little corner here. My sponge is just soaked with water. It's a natural sponge. Don't get the synthetic plastic one. Yeah, my flux. I'll show you my flux real quick. I believe in classic gel flux. I buy it by the gallon. That's how much I love it. This gallon, oh lordy, I don't know. I probably bought it 10 years ago. You can see I don't use much of it. It's Gel Flux Classic 100 Gel Flux. This is what it looks like. And I just put it in a little condiment cup that you can get at restaurants or restaurant supply. And I use a little paintbrush that I've trimmed down shorter. And I literally don't hardly use any of it. If I do use it, I'll dip it and then I'll wipe it off the side. And that's how I flux everything. I love the gel flux. It doesn't sputter and splatter like what a liquid flux does, and it's easier to apply than what a gel flux or a paste flux works. I learned this lesson the hard way, and I mentioned it in other videos, but don't mix your fluxes. I had one gal that was working for me, and she loved liquid flux because that's what she was used to. So we started a big panel, and I had to have it done, deadline next day. She started soldering it. And I thought, okay, let's go ahead and clean it off. I'll take it home. I'll finish it that night. When I got it home, I'm a gel flux user. So I put the flux on, and for the life of me, it would not solder. No way, no how. And literally, I was up all night. I washed it with Windex. I washed it with alcohol. I washed it with Dawn soap. I washed. I did everything possible. And for some reason, whatever solder she used, or flux she used, was not liking my flux. And I mean, I learned it hard and true that night. So don't mix your fluxes on a project. I just seen one up here on the butterfly. I'm going to fix it real quick. Alrighty. Other questions? Yeah, I like doing the live thing, and I also do YouTube. and we'll post YouTube just because it seems like it is more transferable. So if I put it on YouTube, I can transfer it to Facebook, but if I put it on Facebook, I can't share it on YouTube. So right now I'm doing both. Other questions that you have, let me know. Right now I'm on the back side and I'm doing a flat solder. I'm using a Weller iron. It's not my favorite. It's not my preferred go-to. I had just bought a new Choice iron. That's my preferred go-to, which uses a rheostat, because you'll see when I start finish soldering, I go really fast. And that one will keep up with me. Actually, sometimes I use two of them simultaneously because one won't keep up. But right now I've got an 800-degree tip in it. This Weller iron is the old style that controls all of the heat by the tip itself in the iron. So I'm kind of at its mercy. I can only go as fast as it will let me. I can't push it like I can the Choice. For some reason my Choice one, the brand new one that I got, the tip, I need to find the correct Allen wrench and tighten the tip down. But I didn't want to delay getting this soldered this weekend, so my next go-to is the Weller. And the Wellers are great. I think, honestly, that you can tell the handle style. It's a really, really old one. This is probably made from the 70s because they changed the handle shape after that. Maybe the 80s, but I think this is a 70s iron. I know this is kind of boring watching me just solder, but maybe I'll do something that will trigger something on you that says, oh, I got it. That's what I've been having problems with. And I've done a lot of soul searching this last year, and you know, what's my purpose on earth? And I know it's to be a teacher because I love sharing information. It's not a pride thing when I share it. It's a, oh dang, I've been there, I've done that, and I don't want you to have to deal with it either. Just like me mentioning don't mix your flux on a project. I literally did not sleep that night. I finished that panel at like 7 o'clock that morning. I started on it at like 8 o'clock the night before, just because I mixed flux. And I certainly don't want you guys to have to go through the things that I've gone through to learn it the hard way. I'd rather have you enjoy the craft and make beautiful things, which you guys are doing some amazing stuff out there as beginners. I'm blown away with it. I have to admit, I was young and stupid at one point too, because my first project was a leaded project that I did in class, and I was pregnant at the time, so my son decided to come to Earth before I could finish my last session. So I learned how to putty on my own after he was born, because the class was over. And then, oh, I was so excited about it. My very, very first oil project was a Christmas present for my dad, which I will never do again, because it was a biplane kaleidoscope. Ignorance is bliss. Oh, and I still have the scar when I was cutting the wire for it to go on the wings. Oh, how stupid was that, right? But I didn't know any better at the time. I thought, all right, this is going to be an awesome gift. And so I delved in and I got it done, and it still is functioning and cool today. But ignorance is bliss. So when I see a new stained glass person doing something that is like really honestly beyond their level at that time, I just laugh, and it's like I have no room to talk because I did the same stupid thing. The other thing I can highly recommend is, as a very new beginning person, stained glass person, it really isn't best to create your own patterns. Or if you do, post it out there so people can help you. Some people want to make these great, awesome designs, and they're actually not possible. Glass only wants to cut and break certain ways, and you need line breaks, and there's just a lot of details that as a new person you don't know yet because you haven't experienced it. And so, get some beginning patterns, or there's a lot of free patterns out there. If you're looking for something and I've got it in my stash, let me know. I have never ever charged for a pattern, and I share all of mine. So even this one, if you want a copy of it, I may charge you a little bit just to copy and mail it for the paper and supplies and stuff, but all of my patterns that you see on my website are my designs. You can have them. If you love it and you want to create it, go for it. I'm not that type of person. So I like to share everything. All right, so there we are. We got the back side flat soldered. Oops, hold on. Somebody's messaging me and it's like blowing up my phone. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to stop this video so that it doesn't just keep on going and going and going, but I'm going to restart right now on a new video and start finish soldering the back, because this will be seen from the other side, from the outside, and if I do ever want to remove it from where it is and hang it as a panel for a room divider, I want it to look good on both sides. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a finish solder on the back side, then I'm going to flip it over, finish solder the front side, put the frame on it, clean her up, patina it, wax it, install it. So I'm going to cut this off and then start up another live one right now.